mom was kind of our advisor and actually introduced using Knack to us, as she'd used it before for her company and stuff.
Yeah, so
That
one of the ideas that they had was keeping track, having an app for volunteer hours, because every high school student needs that for whether that's for college or for the NHS or whatever that might be.
Church.
And church, right? But part of that is not just the hours that you're recording, but also finding the volunteer opportunities. And at that point, my husband and I own our own business that's supply manufacturing equipment that goes to dairy farmers. And I have used Knack as we move buildings. We're moving all of our inventory. So I ended up building a database in Knack for our inventory because not everybody had access to QuickBooks. And as we're moving buildings, we needed something that was really flexible, that I could give access to anybody and everybody. It wasn't connected to our actual financial numbers. And so
Right.
I knew that was going to solve one of our problems, which was the time, right? That was going to help us make sure that they were able to develop an app. The other reason was at that point, they haven't really worked with data sets. So from personal development for them as coders and just learning about software was to be able to work with a database and understand the relationships and figure that out. And I thought that would be absolutely perfect for that.
I think it was just easy and wonderful to use Knack, as these things are already created with programming languages in your Python, JavaScript, and a whole bunch of other languages. You have to create it from scratch. Sure, some of them are already like implemented, like when you say print this, they go, oh yeah, I know what print is. You just had to tell me what to do with that. It's kind of what Knack was, but it was still more advanced than that. I didn't have to build exactly everything from scratch. So actually the first thing we ended up doing, because we wanted a calendar, the main calendar was already set up. It was perfect. We didn't have to work on it ever. All it was just, we have a calendar. All right. When we create a service opportunity, that's the calendar. Perfect. We want this color, we want this color, we want this color. That was great. Another thing was if statements or something, there would also be that within those pages, as they would be rules. So you could say this account is not a volunteer, they can't access this page. If this person doesn't have an account, then they can't access this page.
Yeah.
That was really nice too.
So it made the calendar was a huge help.
Oh yeah.
The predefined or the ability to adjust the user roles, right?
Yeah.
And
there was also the login and sign up page that was already set up. All you had to do was add some rules to it.
Our company is like the typical American dream story. We literally started in our garage and moved into a slightly bigger facility, and then last year, 2 years ago, we actually bought a big building. But at that point, we already had inventory. We were keeping it in QuickBooks Desktop, which is very limited in how many people can actually get into it. And we needed to move all of our inventory into the new facility. That was a blank slate. So there were no bins, there were no shelves, nothing. We were putting all of that together from scratch. So what we needed was, and then with the new facility came a few new folks that were not familiar with the parts, the way they look. And so what we ended up doing was I built the database in Knack based off of one of the pre-built inventory management apps. I think you actually have a template for that as well. So I started with that, customized that to what we needed, and what we were able to do was track which parts we moved over. So it was a full import data dump from QuickBooks through a CSV file, and then adding the bins that we had in the old facility to moving it into the new facility. But actually, I think that was you and your sister ended up doing all the image tagging. So we were able to add that field for the images, which of course doesn't exist in QuickBooks. And that helped us transfer the visual information from the employees that were up north that were familiar with it, but then moving it to the new employees that were down south that didn't have an idea of what the part even looked like. And then the other bit that we ended up doing with it was certain parts needed to have built to them. And again, with new people in the new facility, that was not knowledge that was just in their head. So we needed a way to explain them. And so we were able to add the builds module to that particular database so that they could actually click on it and see which parts constituted the new assembly.
Is that like almost like an online training and documentation type use case or procedure?
In a way, that's what it would be, yeah, because you could say, okay, this customer just asked for part ABC, and they could look it up in Knack and go, okay, tell me what is all the stuff that goes into part ABC. What we're looking for is being able to track the production in a better way. So how many hours the machines are operating, how many hours the operators are on them, how quickly they choose which operator is better on what machine.
Yep.
And that's definitely my next case for Knack, and being able to track that and make it really easier on the guys on the production floor, because they are paper and pencil people, right? I can't tell you the stacks. I get a note clipboard that's just full of papers with, oh, I sat down at 8 and I checked out at 10, and it's a whole sheet for just one day. And that's just enormous data entry. So being able to bring that to an iPad or an older laptop, even because it's web-based and I don't have to rely on especially with Apples, because that's what we use. Once the operating system is old, you can download new apps, right? They just won't work. And so having the database based online where we're just interfacing with Google Chrome or something like that, it allows me to use my older laptops that I can't use for the salespeople because it doesn't work for daylight anymore. And I can make a use of those on the production floor. What I can see it doing in the long term is really the productivity assessment, the putting in the maintenance timelines for the machines, right? Because now I'm tracking how many hours the machine is running for my production purposes, but that could be sending me emails and notifications that it needs oils and bearings and the preventative maintenance of the production floor itself.
Yeah, I would like to go into the career of job of being a software developer. Again, I'm not at this moment, I'm not for sure what I would use Knack for specifically in the future, but I think I would probably end up using Knack again, as it was nice and easy, especially with a time limit. We will obviously try and incorporate our Knack web-based app with the adding volunteer hours for next year. But besides that, I'm not for sure what kind of ideas we have for more apps and stuff.
I think from my perspective, it gives her a more rounded experience, right? So not only I can program an app, but I can also work in an environment that was predefined by somebody else, and I can work within that. And, managing data, period, like that's the name of the game, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like understanding that, no, I didn't just program a little thing in Python, but I've also worked with data sets and I can organize them and I understand the relationships within a database and how you organize. I think that to me is the huge value for the student team and what they were able to get out of this project.